So the minute I hit that tree, I turned around to see if Junior was coming behind me, and Junior wasn't there. But what was there, from me to you away, probably 4 foot, I could have leaned over and touched it with my hand. Good thing I didn't. Somebody from NASA told me it would have killed you. It did. Could have. The energy from it. So there was a being standing there, just like Junior described. It was that he saw on the river. It was 3.5 feet tall. It looked like a child, not like a gray alien you would think about. People talk about. It was a little glowing, color of the moon, soft glow. 3.5 foot, 4-year-old, looked like a 4-year-old child. Head and face was a little different. Definitely weren't human. Eyes were glowing red. They looked mechanical. When you look at them, they look like the little markers on a transfer truck, the side markers. You see these little round lights along the side. They were about that size, 1.5 inches. It had this triangle on its chest, glowing. This thing was glowing, but it had a dark section that won't glow. It was in the shape of a triangle. And I knew I was in trouble. The minute I saw it, now it's all happened so quick. I ran against that tree and I stopped myself and I looked back and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? So I got closer to the tree. I didn't want to get closer that way to turn around. So I backed my back against the tree and I'm facing this thing. And I said, I surrender. I mean you no harm. I'm sorry. I'm not here to, I surrendered to it. I just knew I was dead. And I heard this voice say, you don't understand, we're not here to hurt you, we're here to help you. About that time, Rosie comes out of the woods. She's still coming. She's still tracking whatever it is. And it just vanished right in front of me, just disappeared. Instead of telling Chris Jr. what had just happened, I walked back up at the house and he's standing in the back door looking for me. And I was scared to tell him any more because he was in shock, right? And that wasn't the end. I was a smoker back then. I had to have a cigarette. I just had to have one. I was just basically hyperventilating. I had to smoke. So I walked into my study. I have a couch with a sunroom, had windows all the way around, and my couch was backed up to these windows. So I put my knees on the couch and I reach over the back. I start to raise the blind, and Junior's freaking out. Don't open the blind, Daddy. Don't. Please don't. And when I raised it up about halfway, I was going to open the window and smoke and blow it out the window, right? But he had all the lights on around the house, and there was this thing, this being, a tall one. I drew it. I painted it, but it's not. My wife thinks it's too scary, so she hid my painting away. Right.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a 4 foot tall painting. And she saw the same thing.
Is it scary, Emily?
It was a conversation piece in our house back in the day for sure. She turned it around and hid it somewhere. I don't know where it is now.
It's in the pod.
Somewhere in storage.
She won't let me bring it out. But anyhow, that's what I saw coming about 20 yards outside that window. And remember, all the floodlights were on, so I could see it perfectly. And
how tall would you say it was?
7 foot. It freaked me out so bad that I shut the shutter down without telling Chris Jr. anything. I'm trying to protect him as a dad, right? So I pulled the blind down, grabbed him by the hand, ran out the front door, jumped in my truck, and we drove about 5 miles away to a big hayfield. Sat in the very middle of the hayfield until daylight the next morning, afraid. That was the beginning and the end of January the 8th of 2007.
And believe it or not, he did leave out details. It's a big story,
Yeah.
but they're all in the book.
Yeah. So that 7 foot being, how did that thing look? Was there any details you could see? Did it look like it was a real biological thing you could touch?
It was a tall two-legged, two-armed humanoid figure that looked more tan-looking than gray, but it's similar to these gray aliens that you hear people talk about.
You always said it had human eyes.
Yeah, it was huge.
It had human eyes.
Sorta, yeah. Bigger, but it looked more human-looking. But it was alien, though.
With a pupil and like an iris? Or was it just all one color? It wasn't all one color?
It was all one color.
Oh, okay.
But the way it looked at me, and yeah, it was a scary thing. So I haven't seen those since, but it was there. It was on my property. And usually I've heard stories that they kind of run together, these taller guys and these small ones, but I don't know. I have no clue.
So out of all the people that were there with you that night, other than your son, has anyone else corroborated any of that?
Yeah, they do. They told their story.
The guys that were there with you?
Yeah. They went on the Discovery Channel and told the story, just like we did. And they reported to MUFON. I have all their interviews from MUFON, and they all corroborated every bit of it. And what happened with them was the same thing with me. They had children my children's age, or older, or younger. All three of them married with children, and they were just good old country boys that worked for my dad as subcontractors with families, and they all went to school with my kids, to most of them, either elementary or middle school or high school. And so when the Discovery Channel made their show in 2008, they made a circus out of us. They made me look like I was crazy and a liar, and they tried to discredit all of us when they told us different. They were going to vindicate us. That's why we all agreed, because we were catching so much slack from the community. It became worse because of that documentary. My children were at school, and they would get made fun of, and she'd come home crying from teachers and the kids in school making fun of what was going on, right? So that shut them up to never want to talk about it ever again. That's why you don't hear much from them.
So after this happened, did you tell anybody else? Did you tell your family immediately, or did you keep it to yourself?
Yeah, I told everybody. I thought it was the most wonderful thing on planet Earth. You know, we're not alone. You know, we've always been told that nothing exists. Even people say God doesn't exist. So it's all faith. You know, it's only us. And we were created by evolution, just time. You know, enough time, anything can create itself. That's what they say. So I just experienced something that what I didn't say was the next day when we left the hayfield and came home, I came home and was worried about my medication, because I had to take medicine every day. And if I missed it, I would get worse. Couldn't miss one day. It just had to stay regular. And I didn't feel sick the next morning. And I didn't take any medication. Just
for the Crohn's?
For the Crohn's. And I haven't had a symptom since then, period. Went away that night. And I was so sick that she can tell you, I was in the bathroom 20 times a day. 25 at the worst, when it was at the worst point. That's what Crohn's does to you. Very painful, you know. It's an intestinal disease.
Right.